Hi, everybody, and welcome to IHAQ number 16. Today is Sunday, September 14th, 2014, here in North America. And my name is Jennifer Madrill in Chicago, Illinois.
This is Dave Cormier in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island.
This is John Schinker in Stow, Ohio.
Jeff Lebo in Busan, Korea, joined by special guest and old friend,
Doug Symington in Calgary, Alberta.
Yay!
Hey, Doug.
So excited. So excited.
And tonight, Jen has problems.
I have problems, and we've discussed in the pre-show, I think these are our age-old problems here at EdTech Talk, so I don't think I'm going to be reinventing any problems tonight, but more bringing them to the fore because I have these on a project I'm working with. And so I'd actually, before I jump into my problems, I noticed when I went over to EdTech Talk, which I don't do very often, that Jeff has a new webcast, and he has had a group of people together that were discussing parallel issues, shockingly. So Jeff, can you give us a little lowdown on what your webcast is about?
Well, my IHAQ co-hosts were such slackers in August, busy
So
going to sporting events and family events and having a life offline, that I was lonely. And so I did something I've been meaning to get going for quite a while, and kind of a somewhat EdTech related conversation for people who teach language. And so I gathered people who mostly do what I do, teach university in Korea, to start things off, and we talked about, I forget what we talked about the first time, but we talked, our second show was about online course options, including the why or why not should you bother doing it. And it's been enjoyable.
So what was the consensus? Can you cut to the chase for us and let us know, were people saying, yes, is this, I'm assuming you're not saying should we take our course online, but it's more how do you facilitate it in terms of like the technology used to support it, right?
No, basically we decided just don't do it. Just go back to
face to
pen and
face.
paper. And
Fantastic. It would make our lives a lot easier, wouldn't it?
I'm about to do that myself.
yeah, themes were as painless as possible for teachers and students, using what the students are comfortable with when possible, and kind of discussing some of the cool options that are out there. There are things like Schoology and Canvas, which are not new but are sort of gaining traction.
Right. All right, can we talk about me now?
Yes.
Just why I've called you all together tonight. So much like I'm sure the people that were on with Jeff's call, once you get into a situation where you're teaching a course or you're working on a project and you need some way to facilitate it online, you quickly run up to that wall. As Jeff aptly said a moment ago, the lowest pain threshold is kind of what you try to go for. And so I've been working on these service learning projects, and the way they work, much like a course, I need some type of platform to be able to post static content, to have discussion forums, but I don't need all the bells and whistles of a full-blown LMS. I don't need to do assessments and things. And so, Jeff, I think, Jeff, you've got it pulled up there. I've got my needs list up there, not just for what I need for the LMS-ish platform that I'm talking about, but a whole bunch of other things. And so what I've tried to do, to kind of cut to the chase, is use my good friend WordPress, which it chugs along and does a nice job, to be able to do these basic things that I need. But what I'm finding now, okay, I've done one service learning course or project, however you want to frame it, but now we've got our second one that we're doing this fall, and we've already got 2 queued up for the spring, and hopefully next year we'll have maybe 10 of them. And so what I'd like to be able to do now is have them build off each other on a platform. So every time I enroll a new group of students, I don't have to go out and set up a whole new WordPress installation. So then that begs questions. Should I look at multi-sites? Should I be abandoning WordPress entirely? And is this starting to look more like a little mini university where I should go out and get something like Canvas or something like that? And so that's where I'm at right now. And so I'm just curious on a macro level what other folks have been doing. I'm sure everyone on this call has been in a similar situation to what I'm talking about. Change the context a little bit. But when you have a small project that starts to get a little bit bigger, do you continue to Band-Aid the WordPress installation or whatever it is? Or at what point do you decide to look into something bigger or something that's maybe more appropriate for what you're doing.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you need, what kind of interaction you need with students? What kind of do they take? Do you want them to take quizzes? Do you want them to archive blog posts? What kind of archive of student material do you want?
Yeah, and right now if you click on that studio.designersforlearning.org, we're in the second week of one of the projects, and that'll give you a pretty decent idea of what we're doing. So right now they're completing a 2-week, what I'm calling a jumpstart orientation, where I'm just hitting them with all kinds of content to give them information about the client, their needs, what the deliverables are that they're going to need to do at the end of this experience in 15 weeks, what they're going to be able to need to produce. And then embedded within that, we've got an asynchronous discussion forum, which I'm using with bbPress. I'm using a form plugin to receive their submissions of their deliverables. So they're doing written reflections that are private to me. But as you're saying, certainly with WordPress, it would be easy to have an open blog. But for the purposes of what we're doing here, the submissions are coming in on a form, which has actually been quite nice. It's a form plugin that as soon as they complete it, it comes to me in an email, and then I can just turn around some feedback in the form of an email. So there are some kind of nice things that are happening. And then we also then have a stage where we are, after they've submitted a deliverable for one of the projects that they're designing, we're sending it out to a macro evaluation and feedback where it goes out to all the faculty members and out to the clients and other subject matter experts. And I'm going outside the platform and using SurveyMonkey to do that, so people will have the ability to look at the deliverable the student has and then respond to a series of evaluation type questions and provide the students feedback that way. I'm also using an event plugin, so there's this calendar of events for our webcasts, which has been pretty helpful to, shockingly people don't do a great job remembering when due dates are. So this calendar plugin is actually quite nice. And then there's just some other side things that I have, like letters of recognition, because we're not a university. I'm not giving grades or anything. So I just give the students and the faculty kind of a pat on the back email, or not an email, but an actual letter that I send out in emails. I'm doing that all offline. There's also then the question of, would this be conducive to getting into some type of badging with digital badges? And so these are all things that are kind of off on the side that I'm not doing yet. So right now my needs are, for that piece of it, are pretty straightforward, and I'm able to, like I said, band-aid things together pretty nicely with the plugins. The question, though, I have then, now what do I do in the spring when I roll on 2 more projects? Do I create 2 more WordPress installations with totally separate URLs? And I really would like to get away from that, because what I'm finding is students are reapplying, and so I don't want to make the students go through all the work of setting up a new login and losing everything that we had started working on the prior semester on the prior project. So I would like there to be some type of continuity as we move the projects forward.
So, Jen, what's the lifespan of these sites that you're setting up? Is this something that lives online indefinitely, or is it just for the length of the project and then it's not needed anymore once the instruction is created? Or, I'm assuming you're not going to have the actual end user students using this site, or have your designers creating content here that will then live on forever.
Yeah, that's a super $1 million question. I don't know. So the project we did in the spring is actually for the same client, and that we're now doing in the fall. So it's a totally different group of learners, but for 4 of them came over from the last one. So I'm definitely having the students go back and look at stuff, and I've linked to it because we're building off of what had been done. So that is a little bit of a unique case, but these are only 15-week projects. So for any type of thing we're doing that's of any scale, there's a very good chance that we're going to do it like we do now, where we'll do 1 iteration, 1 semester, we'll pick up and do the second iteration, another one.
Right. I guess it's one thing to have a couple projects going on per semester, and then maybe you're archiving those or you're making them available online, but they don't necessarily have to live in perpetuity. And it's another to have like 100 different projects where people are actively on them, and trying to manage that is a whole different ballgame.
Right. So they would definitely have, for the most part, I think probably always, I guess, a start date and end date, much like a semester. And the reason that is, these are students who are doing this for the most part for course credit. So they need it to be done at the end of the semester. So while I may want the content to reside for others to look at, for all practical purposes, to your question, yeah, there's no real new activity happening at the end of the 15 weeks. So what about my $1,000,000 question? How would you manage what would you do now as you're thinking about January, which I am right now, bringing on 2 more projects? Would you continue on doing what I'm doing, setting up another WordPress installation, replicating what I've got, or would you start thinking about doing something different, either a WordPress multi-site or moving to an entirely different type of content management system entirely?
Yeah, Dave.
I'll jump
what's the
in.
answer? Oh, Doug.
I jump in and say you have to go back and answer that archival question first, in terms of what's the lifespan of the activity, or of the materials, how long you want them to persist, because I think that would inform how you move forward. And I'd put in a plug for having it available ongoing, if not for a portfolio, just for people to be able to refer back to work they did. I think that would be valuable for them and for other people in terms of
Yeah.
process. So,
Yeah, I'm totally with you,
having
Doug.
said that, maybe you continue to build in WordPress, and they will talk to one another in some way that'll make itself clear as you proceed.
Right. Well, and that would lend itself to multi-site, because then you're creating new sites on the same WordPress install, and some of those are maybe not very active anymore, so you don't have to worry really about server load as much, but the content is still there, and it's still accessible and available as needed, I guess.
So I guess that how about the bigger question? I keep bringing up WordPress, and I know you guys are kind of echoing that because that's what I've been using. But is there anything else that you prefer, that you've used, that would appear to be something that I could now pick up on that I don't know about yet? And please don't say Drupal or.
My pluses and minuses with WordPress are really, I love WordPress, and I've said that on this webcast lots of times, that I really love the interface, and it's easy to use, and it's easy for people to put content online quickly. That said, WordPress is a pain to manage because they come out with a new major version every 4 months, and so version 4 just came out, and in a month there'll be another version or a smaller update to that, and another month there'll be another update, and another month there'll be another major update. And every time you do those updates, you have the possibility that something's going to break. And when you're getting into plugins and you're adding a lot of stuff and a lot of functionality, it's really easy for a plugin developer to say, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And suddenly that plugin doesn't work. So when you update, everything breaks. And we've had that problem. Our school district website runs on WordPress, and our staff blogs are running on WordPress, and we've had that problem all the time where, we do an update and suddenly all our menus are broken, and we have to find a new way to do that, or photo galleries don't work anymore. And so that's sort of the downside, is as you move forward with WordPress and you get more and more plugins in, the likelihood that something's going to break as you update gets higher. That said, I still love it from the user's perspective, because it's really, really easy. I mean, if they can send email, they can post on a blog.
And another thing I didn't mention, right now I'm the facilitator, but that's hopefully soon going to change. In fact, it's going to change in January. I'm going to have someone else taking on one of the projects to be the facilitator, so that person then needs to know the back end of WordPress a bit. I mean, I can certainly, it's not a huge amount for me to set this up for somebody, but if they need to tweak something or add some additional content, they need to know how to modify a page, how to change the event calendar thing, those types of things. And so usually, I mean, if I can do WordPress, I usually assume most people can do WordPress. So that's another advantage. Although John and I had a side conversation on Friday, and really when you start thinking about bringing in a lot of different facilitators, then you start thinking like an LMS where you'd have a teacher going in and populating, and you try to make that experience fairly easy too. And so I kind of keep going down, like creeping down this path going, well, maybe an LMS is a better home for this, especially as we grow.
What other options are you considering?
There Moodle, which, I mean, come on, what's out there? I mean, there's really, I don't know what's out there.
I had my first date with Schoology last night. I mean, I've been aware of it, I sort of looked at it, but Benjamin Stewart took me for a tour of his site, and I kind of started one. And it really does almost everything you'd want Moodle to do, just less ugly and more painless. And you can you can create quizzes and forums and events and duplicate the course. You can, WordPress has that nice public interface. It just looks like a public site, all the content's there. And you can link to your materials in Schoology, but it doesn't have that public feel as much.
So it doesn't have it's pretty locked. That is a huge point, Jeff. You brought up that's not on my list, but it's a great point. I do want this to look open and transparent. So if anyone comes to the platform I showed you, the studio.designers for learning, that it's very open and they see everything that everybody else would see. It's not a walled garden. So, but what else did you like about Schoology though, Jeff? I mean, would you use it or
Yeah. For like an LMS, it does what I want. I want discussion forums, I want quizzes, I want a calendar, I want to track quizzes, and for you, I don't think you even need quizzes. It's got what I need. It's free, and I don't have to update anything. I could almost see a hybrid model where like WordPress is sort of the public interface where the material lives, and for each cohort, okay, here's
getting in other stuff. Yeah.
Right. And for anyone who might be wondering, I did download. John was laughing at me. I'm instead of a crack habit, I have a plug-in habit that I need to break. And so at a pretty good clip, I'm spending.
If you ever need something tried out, just call Jen. She'll buy it and try it and report back.
Perfect.
So I tried LearnDash, which was a $100 experiment because I thought it would do a little bit more than it actually did, and so I have tried probably all the main ones that you could think of if that comes up. But go ahead, Doug. I think did I interrupt you?
Well, we're trying to see if we can.
I just want to know: is Schoology a hosted service, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, the thing with the hosting stuff is it's all well and good until they turn the switch off or somebody buys them and closes them down. So. That's the other thing in terms of hosting your own WordPress. At least it's between you and your ISP as to how long it persists, kind of thing.
Right. And Dave, are you quiet because your audio's not working, or because I haven't stopped talking?
Oh, I don't hear him.
I can't. I would assume that if Dave is quiet this long, that we can't hear him for a technical reason.
It's got to be technology.
Yeah. See, he's talking now.
Yeah.
Jen, have you considered something like project management software? I mean, I know that we're in the education paradigm, so we think blogging in LMS, but if you went more like Basecamp or something like that, where it's Gantt chart driven and it's we're working on a project and there are milestones and deliverables and maybe using that paradigm. I don't know if that fits in with what you're trying to do with your project, but I don't know that we necessarily need an LMS metaphor for this project.
You're right. It really does overlap. And so what I found, I'm going out looking for plugins that have project management features. So that's an option too. And that's a whole world I really haven't explored at all. So I'm not sure. And then can I tell you my other problem in the time that we have? Or do you want to continue?
Sure, we've solved this one, so go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I think we had the same conversation during the first MS Academy, probably. So now my students are out there designing these projects. They need some place to host.
Dave, we heard that.
Now we can hear Dave?
Yay!
Okay, go ahead. Before I start my next problem.
No, you go ahead. I want to hear the next problem. I have a feeling they're both connected.
They're very connected. So the next thing is the students develop their work. So now they're in the same predicament I am. Where do we put our work so the client can access it?
Connected.
And so what we did, there's a link there to hopelearning.weebly.com. The students went out and set up a Weebly because it was free. We have no money. And it's just a place for them to be able to post static content. So they're designing instruction for a nonprofit. So again, it's very much like the same issues that I just described. They need to be able to have something that hosts content and potentially would have discussion features and blog features and all those types of things that you'd need when you're designing instruction. So go ahead, Dave.
So essentially you've gone outside of the command and control structure of education, and your course is not being held together by those things because they're not there.
They're not there.
So normally you would have the fact that people are paying to go to a school or whatever else, these things would hold you together at some level.
Right.
And the stuff that's out there on the net as it exists, Weebly, whatever, there are all kinds of reasons why those things are challenging. I mean, I've spent the last 6 months talking to the RISO 14 people about what we do about RISO 15. So I've spent a lot of time around this kind of conversation.
So tell me, what are you doing? What are you doing? Give me the answers.
Panic mostly, because there really isn't a solution, right? Because the question that I tried to ask earlier when my audio wasn't working is which piece are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up the archiving of people's work? Are you willing to give up the ease of connectivity between people? Like, at some point, we can't have all of the things that we'd have in a classroom plus have all of the things that the open web allows us to do. So we have to sort of look at the whole pile of things that we're going to get out of it, like, persistence of content or persistence of connection or the ability to replicate, like you said, what happens when I start the next one in January. So you can't have all of them. Because, I still have projects from 6 years, and Jeff Lebo has them from like 15 years ago, where you're still supporting something on a website, on a web server somewhere from this project you did 10 years ago, and you still care about it, but you're like, seriously, do I need to update that again? And you're only talking about this one and the next two. What happens 5 years from now when you have 20 of them?
Right. So, Davey,
all of these archives.
I was using that. Poor John. I made him on Friday just listen to the same exact whining platform.
It's all right. I only
here.
listened to half of it that time. I'm only listening to half of it this time, so we're good.
Okay.
Just to interject a question from Peggy, she's asking, do the clients need access to the entire course?
They very much are involved, which is awesome. So, for example, on the discussion forums, we have not a frequently asked questions, but a Q&A section. So when the students get stuck, they're asked to go there first, because probably if they have the questions, the other ones do as well. So they do have access to everything because they want to see what the students have, and they may say, oh, you forgot to include our style guide or something like that. And so, yeah, they have full access. But Dave, my comparison of some of the my feature list tracks a little bit with P2PU in that they do have the legacy piece of it. Some of their stuff just sucks. I wasn't looking like the Discuss or whatever. To me, that's not even really a discussion platform, right? Is Discus, is that what it is? Okay, that's horrible.
No, and it doesn't work out at scale either. We saw that with the stuff we did.
So
but what are you willing to give up? You're not going to get all of it. So
you're not going to get all of it in one place necessarily, but that doesn't mean you can't patch something together.
Well, so that's what I've been doing. And so I'm doing it in a very painful way. And I guess what I'm saying is now to take it to scale, it can't be this painful, or I'll either have a heart attack or I'll stop doing this, because if we get 10 projects next year, I can't do this. You have 6 different plugins going and going out to SurveyMonkey. And
this is my point, Jeff, is that my experience is the number of people who are willing to hold things together to the level that you are has been, in my experience, the number is 1. You are the only person I have ever met who is willing to hold things together for as long as you do. Nobody else does.
I think anything I've done has been held together, but I appreciate it. But no, I still kind of like the hybrid model. I like the, whether it's a WordPress or a Blogger or whatever, it's where the content is. And like with Blogger, I don't have to worry about archiving it anymore. Google's going to take care of it. And then for all the functionality, right now Schoology is the place for me. Is the most attractive, but that'll come and go, and you don't have to worry about that either. It creates another login, which is a little bit of a hassle, but for me, I think that would be the way I'd go right now.
But you're willing to dispose of the storage of the contents. For Schoology goes away, you're gonna be like, meh, it's gone away. So you've given up the archiving.
Not of some of the conversation.
With the semester.
Right.
It's the iteration of the course. It's not.
Now, so as long as you think the course is disposable, then what you do works out fine.
Well, I would also encourage students to own their own content. So I might encourage them to have their own blog on a Blogger or wherever. But yeah, archaeologists aren't going to dig up this course and say, what is student.
But this is the point that I'm trying to make. It depends on which part that Jennifer thinks is more important. So if the part that's really important is how long it maintains itself, if those projects themselves are the important piece, if the connections between those people are important, if none of that stuff matters, then frankly you're probably thinking about this too hard. Just throw up something different every time. It doesn't matter.
No.
Dave, let's flip it around and say it does matter. What do you do if it does matter? I want to hear your thoughts on how do you make it persistent.
Well, and this is the problem with doing it and with the financial model that Jen is running on, is that it's going to be a lot of work.
Do you bet on
And
Google?
then you're going to be stitching together a bunch of pieces like Jeff describes, and you're going to be responsible for updating all the different pieces, trying to maintain its longevity. I have a project that I was involved in 2008 that I just turned over recently, that I've been holding on a server forever, and I have 4 or 5 of those things that have been trailing along behind me, and they're annoying. As
Mm-hmm.
much as I cared about those projects and still care about their value, those kinds of stitching, like Living Archives that we did in '97, and so some of you guys would
Mm-hmm.
remember that work.
Mhm.
That site is still annoying people. Like there are still people who yell at me about it because we tried to build this system that would do everything. We tried to build a system that would do the archiving and the connecting and the blogging and all these pieces. We built it in Drupal, and you already made your face about Drupal earlier. Drupal face, as it were.
Dave, you're not still running an open sim server, are you?
I hope not. I can't say for sure I'm not, but I don't
Maybe
know
time
about
for
it.
an audit.
But you know what?
Um,
We had a mini bit conversation about this when I first did the last project. I just put a link in the chat room. Our first iteration, I used Google Sites for all the reasons we just talked about. I didn't want to be a web host, hostess with the mostest. I wanted Google to do that. But then that has you're still patching stuff together. And then Dave, to answer your question you asked me before, what is most important to me is making things easy for my users who I only interact with virtually, and they're from this current project, they're from 13 different colleges and universities. We have no common denominator. I've never met any of these people face-to-face. I probably never will. They don't know me even virtually. It's not like we even had virtual relationships, so I can't even assume they're going to be on Skype or whatever. So I just needed a home base that is incredibly intuitive. Like you just go there and you're like, okay, here's where the forum is. Okay, here's where I read content. Here's where I send this woman that I've never met an email. I click this button. So that really, to me, I can't lose that piece of it. The
if
rest
I
of
was in
it,
that scenario, this sounds terrible. If I was in that scenario, I would use Moodle.
Well,
Because
that was a conversation stopper.
because
again, I'm
because
having
you can strip it
2006
back.
flashbacks. Oh my
You can
gosh.
strip it back. You can make it simple. The new edition of it, you can carve it back so that there's a single stream in it, and it works all the time. It's not pretty, but it does its job. It now does a bunch of things it didn't used to do, and it's very clear where everybody needs to go, and the product's been around forever and it's going to stay. So that's probably what I would use. And then the next time you need to run one, the export-import function on Moodle works really well, and you would export it, strip the people out of it, import it in, and put a new instance of it, and it wouldn't cost you more than 15 minutes, and you'd be done.
Wow. Okay. I'll have to dust off my...
The thing is that it's really easy to duplicate Moodle. Very, very easy. And there's no added overhead and none of that stuff because it's designed to be like that. And it does logins really well and all that stuff. Is it pretty? But you can strip it back now. You can strip it back enough that it's pretty simple. So that's what I would do.
And Peggy agrees with you, which...
Peggy's got a raised hand, which means a lot. Any nays? Do we have any nays before we log off?
We have a
John?
meh.
Yes, it was an awesome solution.
Carol, we've got a yay with Carol. Yeah, like I said, this is just an echo of how many conversations we've had. I mean, we've gone down
I'll
this
give you an
path.
example.
So Dave,
I had
why would you
somebody
not
come
use
into my
Moodle for
office.
yours?
Oops, sorry, I lost my earbud. I had somebody come into my office last year and say, I'm trying to do all the career stuff 2 years ago. I'm trying to do all the career stuff for incoming students into the university. And I have no idea if they're coming, and I don't know how many are going to come, but I have to do it every year. And I'm trying to build a website to do it, and I'm thinking I'm going to use WordPress, and she was talking about all kinds of other stuff. And at the end of it, what it came down to is she wanted to be able to track the people coming in to get some sense of how much she was doing, and Moodle does that reasonably well. Because that's the other thing about WordPress is tracking gets really weird. And you're going to look, at some point, you're going to be talking to a funder, and they're going to say, well, give me some ROI on it. Like, just give me some sense of what's happening. And unless you set up WordPress really well, and you can, but unless you do it really well, you're not going to be able to tell, whereas Moodle will totally track everything that's ever happened, which is really nice. So from a long-term planning perspective, if you do it inside of one Moodle, it'll keep track of all the things that ever happened. So you can always go back and pull that data together whenever you need it for whatever funding conversation you may be having down the road. And I've never seen, and John can tell me that this isn't true, but none of the Moodle servers I've ever been involved with have ever gone down, unless you have a whole bunch of people doing quizzes at the same time. It doesn't seem to like doing that.
Yeah,
but
quizzes are awful. But
quizzes are awful, but you're not going to be doing quizzes, so it doesn't matter. The discussion forums are fine. They're better than Discus. They're not great, but they're okay.
Updates are not fun.
What's that?
Updates are not fun.
No, that's true.
No.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
Now we're back to the...
one of the things that always bothered me about Moodle is you never get, or in the past at least, you couldn't get just the public face. You always even like have to log in as a guest to see stuff. Is that still the case?
I don't know, but I know I didn't like that part of it.
Yeah.
No
I mean,
splash page or whatever.
Yeah, you can have fully public pages now, I think, without the guest logins, but it's still not as elegant as you'd like. But she's not looking at having 1,000 people. She has specifically selected people who are coming in, right?
There is that, like, I can't even tell you how many times a week people will say, oh, let me, what are you doing or whatever, and I'll show them the project space.
And it's pretty. Your page now is pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
Keep the
That's
WordPress
really
as a
nice of you.
project space and then have them do the work inside of Moodle. You could always go to something like edX.
You said you're just making fun now. Now you're just being mean. Okay, well, let's see. Let's turn this around. So why would you not use Moodle for your project that you need? Because you don't need to be that organized with getting everybody at one place at one time kind of thing.
Me?
It's not a big deal. Yeah, for your Rhizo.
With Rhizo 15?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the same social contract with those people when they come in. So my social contract is I'm going to try to be one of the central nodes in a broader discussion community, and if you can hack it, you can come along and play with us. And I'll do whatever I can to try to do something for that. So, I mean, I don't have specific outcomes in the way that you do, right? So for me, I don't want to be holding anything, and reasonably speaking, what I'm trying to do is support connections along a certain line of thought. So this year, I think we're going to be looking at trying to do the pragmatic approach to rhizomatic learning and do a lot of learning contract stuff. But I want people out on the web talking about it, because I want them talking about things that aren't instructivist and things that are of the web, right? So that's my agenda. So the more they do that in public, the better, because that's all I'm doing it for. Whereas you have but you have specific sort of outcomes that you're looking to support in the interactions between these 25 or however many people, the 13 different universities that you're talking about. So those people have a specific social contract with you where they're looking for specific kinds of outcomes based on the projects that they're working on. And those are different kinds of things. And again, most importantly in my mind, and again, maybe I spent too much time working on the admin side of a university, is that at some point you're going to go looking for funding. And you're going to need to have some kind of track record of what you've done. And having those database records to pull out are going to be awful sweet whenever you need them down the road. Whereas for my work, it doesn't.
I had another thought. Okay, what about Dave? What about, could I make it Moodle-like if I did the multi? I've not done a multi-site. I don't know if anybody on this call has. Can you make a multi-site Moodle-like?
Like a WordPress multi-site?
Yeah.
No.
Or where then each thing is like a course?
No, not really. I mean, BuddyPress will get you somewhere in that ballpark, but the important part of Moodle and what it really the way that it replicates really well is that you'll work on one course and you'll spend, let's say, how long are they, 15 weeks you said?
Yep.
So you spend 15 weeks and you tweak that and you tweak this and you do that with this and you do that with that and you go, okay, I think I've got a piece that I like. and then you press the button to export, you strip all the personal data out of it, you import that back in as the next course, and all the work you did for the last 15 weeks, minus all the personal
still
data,
there.
shows back up as the next start of the next one. And then you start building again. So as you iterate, it keeps all the pieces that you're building. You're never going to be able to do that with WordPress.
Which is going to be nice because what I'd like to do is have the students who are service learners now, then, for example, in the spring, one of them is going to now take on a facilitation role. It won't be me, it'll be her. So she certainly does not know how to do WordPress. So she will then, we load it up like you're saying.
Whereas throwing up a course in Moodle is...
God, it's so ugly. That is just like awful.
I know, I'm sorry, but it's the best advice I have.
But I mean, you can also do that with blogs. I mean, you can export the XML file, and you can choose whether you want to include comments in that or not. You can do it.
No,
with
you
blog
can't
or WordPress.
re-import the structure of it, Jeff.
You can back up the whole WordPress and choose what you want to back up, can't you?
You
John's making
can
funny faces.
back
I'll
up.
let him answer.
You can back up posts. I don't think you can grab pages that way. You can
I think
grab
there may be
posts, and you can get categories
there may be
and
plugins actually that do
tags.
this, what you're talking about.
It may, but I know exactly how Moodle does it, which is that awful line of checkboxes where it shows you the big page and you hit export and you go check, 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 and you hit bang, and I know it works every time.
It works well. It works every time if you're importing it into the same server you took it out of.
But that's what I mean. But that's the scenario we're
Like,
talking
don't
about.
update or anything
No,
before
no,
you
no, no,
re-import
no,
it.
no, no. Don't expect it to
Your
be
tables will not work.
You know
I
what's
just want to
cracking me
finish.
up?
Sorry, what?
Oh, if you look at the link that I was not aware familiar with the is it Lisa? I don't
Lisa
know.
Lane. Yep, that's what I was going to mention.
Or is it look how similar that is to my site. She's got like an event calendar, she's got her orientation week, she's got, she uses blogs, but I use a forum. I mean, look what we end up doing, because we're like, this is all I need. This is just simple. You go here, you click a button. Why don't we just go out and make this, people?
Well, I mean, I think the one point Dave makes that I'm on board with is the analytics. Is the data and analytics, and you're living in a world where that might matter.
It might matter.
Moodle would provide that. I think Schoology would provide that as well. And the blog stuff tends not to provide.
I could look into that too, yeah.
But I still go back to students owning their content, whether it's Moodle or Schoology. Like, I want students to have their own blog. I want them, like, I don't like these LMSs where all the content lives there. And
that's what Dave's talking about with Rhizo, that it's a distributed thing, and you're trying to aggregate content, and that's not what Jen's doing at all.
I don't even try to aggregate the content for Rhizo. I make no effort.
Okay. The traditional MOOCs used to do that.
Yeah, I don't even do that.
Yeah.
If the community doesn't pull the content together, it won't get pulled together. I don't want to be, and I tried really hard last time not to have any responsibility for any of the pulling together, and I still kind of did. I'm going to try harder this time, because
But
what
that's
I'm
why
trying
we
to
need
do,
hashtags, right?
I'll mention the hashtag, and after that, even if they make other ones, I don't care, because what I'm trying to do is engender the creation of community, right? I want people to be working together in whatever way works for them, and I don't presume to understand beforehand what's going to happen, and that's what I'm trying to do. Whereas you have a specific social contract with people, so it's totally different.
Yeah. No.
So Jim, why did you move away from Google after the first year? You said you did Google Sites the first go round. Why did you not continue with that? Because other than
I basically replicated. I basically replicated Google Sites in a WordPress. I really can't answer that, except I did think it was
other than my all your eggs in one basket argument, against having your stuff hosted by somebody. From what I see from Google, I think so much of what we need to do, we can do in there, including calls like this one, content, forms that'll populate a spreadsheet, on and on it goes. So, other than the fact that they too may take your stuff all the way at one point, I'd like to hear what people think about Google as a space for cobbling something together in terms of their suite of tools and how they interconnect.
Yeah, it was fine. We used their discussion forums. I used the site. We used Hangouts. So yeah, I was all in with Google last semester. Yeah.
So last semester you did Google Sites, and this semester you're doing WordPress. And next semester it looks like we've decided that you're using Moodle. So why don't you just run through all of these and report back to him?
It basically sounds like I'm doing that. But the funny thing is I make each one look identical to the last one. I'm really not changing any functionality whatsoever, except killing myself in the process. So I guess I'm just trying to find the easiest way to do it.
And really, your biggest issue now is when a new cohort comes in, you want a clean slate.
No, my biggest issue now is kind of getting to Dave's point. When a new cohort comes in, how do I quickly set it up so I'm not building the infrastructure each and every time?
How much do you
like? I'm not the
other
one
thing is, like, on some of my sites, it's not totally wiped clean, and so you see content from previous, you see earlier discussions, which I kind of like. I like the idea of sort of this being an ongoing learning community, and you can create spaces that are distinct for this cohort, but welcome.
Well, our projects change. I mean, the projects, the client will change, the project changes, so it would just get kind of a tad messy, just. If we have a style, it's like 6 different style guides. Which one is it for this project or whatever, So there's that aspect of it too. So okay, well, thank you. We've gone long. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So like I said, I think I could go back and listen to a recording from 2006.
All right, time to vote, people. If you think Jen should use Moodle, dial now and / hashtag 01.
Moodle. I can't believe we're still saying Moodle. Is there any? I guess we've also come to the conclusion, other than Moodle, there really is no other, let's say, open source solution that does.
Decent LMS. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still voting. Keep your lovely WordPress and use Schoology.
I'm going to go check Schoology as well. I will go check that out, and I will download Moodle tonight.
Install Moodle for fun. You've got servers to play with.
Many.
Set it up for spring.
I'm turning into Jeff Lebo with my URLs.
How many domains are you up to?
It's all the Designers for Learning and then I do subdomains on top. So I've got designersforlearning.info, org, com, net, whatever, and then all the subdomains. Studio.designersforlearning.org. Okay.
Moodle.designersforlearning.org.
Yeah, Moodle.design. That'll be tonight. We'll get that tonight. I love it.
Designers for Learning.
We're getting like some little fisticuffs happening in the chat room. That's cracking me up. Don't do it. Do it. So. Okay, well, thank you very much. This exceeded my expectations.
I wanted to put a plug in for ELT Live number 3 being streamed at 1400 GMT, 8 a.m. Coast, 9 p.m. Korea. We're talking about using mobile tools, smart technologies for language learning.
It's Jeff's other mistress.
What day is that? Yeah, exactly. Are you leaving us for that?
What time it is?
Tonight, Jeff?
No, Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday. Okay. Very good.
And Doug, what do you have going on?
Yeah, Doug, what's going on with you?
I'm having some of the same conversations, only in the corporate world, in terms of content and what it looks like, and do MOOCs work in corporations and all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. Many of the same issues from the opposite side of the coin, I'd have to say. In terms of
we miss you. We'd like to have you come on again and talk more about what you're doing and
EdTech Brainstorm.
I thank you for that. Yes, and I would love to resurrect the EdTech Brainstorm. So we may see some of those later this fall.
Sweet.
That'd be awesome. Thursday nights, right? Weren't those Thursday nights?
They were Thursday nights. Yeah, and I'd like to thank you for having me on this evening. It's been fun to be back, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Sweet.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys, really, truly, sincerely. I really, truly mean it. Thank you for listening and answering. I appreciate it.
All right, are we coming back next week?
Ta-ta. See you next
week. Next week? What?
Well, that's what we're saying.
Ahead of time. Come on.
Yay.
Might be time for summer vacation now.
I think so. It's almost Thanksgiving, right? All right. Ta-ta, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye. Cheers.